Hello YouTube! We are currently in August in France, which brings back a lot of memories for me, not only because it's summertime, but it's almost September, which means it's almost la rentrée. La rentrée is when everyone goes back to school. It always makes me think about this naive little Kiwi girl that came all the way around the globe, landed in Paris, and thought that doing her master's degree here would be exactly the same as doing her degree back in New Zealand. But not at all. So very quickly, just to give you a little bit of context, there are effectively three options when it comes to higher education in France. You've got the more technical institutions, more practical focused kind of institutions like in many countries. Then you've got schools, Grande Ecole, or you've got universities. And schools and universities aren't exactly the same. You'll both come out with a master's of something, but the education style is very different. And I've explained this in quite a lot of detail in a video that I've already done, which I will link up here. So I won't go into the details of that, but just so you know, I was in a school kind of system. So that's maybe why I had some of the experiences that I did. So the first big surprise was just really about the daily structure. So how the days were organized and the way we kind of functioned within the school. So firstly, there was an attendance list. For our particular school, it's because I did a master's degree with an internship component, and the company actually pays you while you're at school. So it's like you're showing up for a work day. So it's really important that you attend. But I know that this exists in other master's programs as well, even if it's not at all linked to the internship thing. So you sign in, and then what's kind of interesting is that your school day is really like a working day, and that you're kind of there like 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. 5 days a week. And you do most of the work during the day. So I was kind of surprised because back at university in New Zealand, we'd only go to class for about 12-15 hours per week, and the rest was completely self-directed. We had a lot of things to write, reports, research to do, essays, but we did it on our own time. Whereas in France, I found that we had a lot of time structured within the day where we could get the majority or the bulk of our work done. Even if we needed to work as a group, we would have, for example, 2 hours in the afternoon dedicated to group work time. And then the actual amount of time that you attend school is really different as well. So in a lot of bachelor's degrees and master's degrees here, you only attend school for a certain amount of months, and then you get straight into internships, or what they call apprenticeships or apprentissage. So me personally, I had about 2.5 months at school doing my master's, studying the theory and the books and that kind of stuff. And then it's in your company, and it's like, wow, I'm working, but I'm earning my master's degree. Of course, you have to write your thesis, but effectively it's a different way of doing things. And this directly affects the content of what you learn. I remember actually, honestly, I found my master's program pretty easy in terms of the content, because there were kind of like a lot of business cases, and there were a lot of theories and stuff that I had already seen before. And the reason is that for my business degree in New Zealand, I studied academically full-time for 3 years, and that was a bachelor's degree. Whereas here, because you're interning, you learn and then you work, and then you learn and then you work. And so it kind of makes sense that by the time you get to the master's level, you're only covering the kind of content that I already covered in my 3rd year of my bachelor's degree, because I never interned. I was just all year round learning content and writing and expressing my point of view, and it's all about critical thinking. Like, I don't think that one system is better than the other. I think it's brilliant, the practical experience that you get in France. But in terms of academic content, I was a little bit surprised. Now, when it comes to the grading in French education systems, so I think this is exactly the same for the university as it is for the Grande Ecole. So the grading is out of 20, and it's really hard to get 20 out of 20. You know, the exception of course being if you do something like math or science, where your answers are exact, they're black or white, they're right or they're wrong. So it's actually possible to get 100% of things correct. But in anything to do with business, literature, sociology, very difficult to get 20 out of 20. And before the French students even begin their higher education, they often go through what's called classe préparatoire, or prépa for short, preparation school. And this is 2 years of what sounds like honestly hell on earth. Apparently, like getting 2 out of 20, getting 3, 4 out of 20 is the average. It's normal. They work so much. It's very military in approach, and basically it's tough. And if you get 10 or 11 out of 20, like you are happy, you're a happy person. I guess there's a kind of hangover effect. For the group thesis that we did together, I'll never forget the person marking it, and they were like, in the last 8 years, I have never seen a thesis of such high quality. The literature review you did, the academia, the link with the professional world, I'm incredibly impressed. And so we couldn't wait to see what our grade was. And when the final results were published, we got 17 out of 20. Best he's ever seen in 8 years. You can always do better, you can always go further. But I noticed when I was job hunting after studying that the recruiters never asked me for my grades. And you know, the French students are not obsessed with their grades or their GPA or whatever it is. Like, they don't really mind what they got. It's sort of like, as long as you've got the school or the university on your CV, it's almost like they put you in a bucket, like they know how smart you are. The negative side of this is that I realized that a lot of French students were just like, they didn't care what grade they got. Like, they just want to get a 10 out of 20, and that's fine, because at the end of the day, they'll have the right school on their CV, and the academic transcript doesn't count for anything. So it's like, if you're a student that constantly gets 18 out of 20, I mean, maybe that's good for, let's say, scholarships or things like that, but in terms of the workforce, I feel like you'll have equal chance being an 18 out of 20 student or being a 10 out of 20 student if you've got exactly the same program and course on your CV. Another thing is that it's definitely a thing in France, whether you go to university or whether you go to one of these écoles. Like, there's a big difference. It's quite elitist, and in these écoles, people are often, you know, I studied in one, and you're often told like, you're the best, you're the future of workplace. Like, what we learn here is a lot more pragmatic, and it's very theoretical in the university, and you're kind of made to believe that the education you're getting is superior to the university. And so what this means is that afterwards I'll be like, oh, what university did you go to? And people will be like, oh, I didn't go to university, I went to an école. I don't know if you know, but there's what we call the Grande Ecole, and it's super important. Like, you don't want to accidentally offend people by asking them which university they went to, which I find kind of crazy. Another thing is that the content of the courses, there's a lot of debating. They ask you a lot for your opinion, you're able to share your convictions, and that's really cool. The professors are often looking for interaction, and you often get the opportunity to express yourself and talk about how you feel about the topic, rather than just receiving, you know, what the experts think about the topic. The last point I noticed is that group work feels a little bit forced in France. It's naturally quite an individualistic country, actually. It's the 11th most individualistic country in the world, according to Hofstede's cultural scales. On one hand, that's why there's a lot of great entrepreneurs in France. But in the education system, I just feel like it was really hard getting people to collaborate and do group work. I mean, even more than usual. And because they don't really care about their grades, it was sort of like everyone's a little bit like meh about it. And so it can be really hard if you're that person in the group that really wants to do well and do a good job and get a good grade. Again, I was in the international track, so it's not something I experienced a lot, but I have a lot of friends who have studied in French-speaking masters or French-speaking bachelor's degrees, and they're like, how does it work? I can't get people to work together. Something to keep in mind as well if you're about to come to study in France is around thinking about how you can motivate people on a common goal and figure out which each team member is good at, to try and get them like excited at least about getting involved in the group project. So that's all that I had for this topic. If you guys are going to become students in France, don't hesitate to ask me any questions down below. I'll definitely be checking out the comments, and otherwise I'll see you guys in the next video. A bientôt!